and I got a round of applause, which is something I never got on a show. His producer came up to me and shook my hand and told me thank you. And kind of in the back there, I saw a tall, handsome cowboy sticking out from the crowd, and it was Leo. And he walked over to me at the end of it and shook my hand and told me it was a pleasure sharing the scene with me. And
Wow.
so so one of my favorite moments in my career was working on that film and that stunt.
It's a pleasure to meet you, man. Thank you so much time for taking the chat, take the time to chat today.
Yeah, you as well, brother.
Man, I'm super keen to talk to you. I don't get a chance to talk to stunt coordinators or many people who work behind the scenes on this sort of stuff. And obviously, I'm a fan of Righteous Gemstones. So seeing the work that you've done in this show is truly incredible. But before I crack into that, I kind of want to ask you a question that I think there's an interesting relationship between stunt work and comedy. And I feel like you can take it back to the dawn of cinema, like the Charlie Chaplin days and sort of stuff like that. There's this huge history with it. I'm curious to know what you see as the relationship between comedy and stunts and why there's such a great like symbiotic relationship between the two.
Oh man, that's such good. No, you're right. You're right though. Like Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, right? Like those were the integration of physical comedy in film and television. And you didn't. I think the thing with stunts and comedy is that you don't need dialogue to use a stunt to do comedy. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So I think you have clever comedy and dialogue, but there's also something really funny inherently in movement when used properly. So I think that's kind of how it all started. Bringing stunts into the comedy world was Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton. They were like the forefathers of physical comedy, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
For sure. Was there a movie or yeah, something that sort of stuck out to you where you first noticed and maybe even sort of kicked off like a love for this sort of craft for yourself?
no, you know what's funny, man? I grew up as a martial artist and a professional parkour and free running athlete, right? So that was kind of like doing martial arts as a kid. I was always into action movies, and then as a young adult, I got into parkour, and that's what got me in the movie business, believe it or
Yeah,
not.
right.
And so I was always just like pumped up and inspired after watching an action movie and leaving the cinema and wanting to climb walls and jump off stuff and do fake fights with my karate friends. Um, but yeah, there's not really one thing in particular that inspired me to go down this path per se. It was just like a love of film and a love of action, and I was always a really jumpy, bouncy kid, you know.
I was the same growing up, especially that love with martial arts films. My dad was such a big influence in showing me like all the like not just even Jackie Chan, but in those early 2000s when you've got all those martial arts films, they're just so exciting and the stunt work is incredible in it. But when you get to mix it with comedy, it's so much fun. And I think that the Civil War episode, obviously Righteous Gemstones, not just as an episode in general for fans, was like a really fun detour and a really like sort of great way to revitalize aspects of the show. But these Civil War scenes are insane. Like they're genuinely incredible shots and scenes. I'm curious to know what the almost pre-production process was like because I know just in general filmmaking is such a collaborative process. But what was that process like in sort of reading those things in the script and going, how are we going to pull something off that is of this scale?
Yeah, bro, you're super kind, and also just as excited as I was when I read it. You know, like I mean, honestly, your level of enthusiasm right now is how I was when I was reading the script.
That's so
I was
cool.
like, this is absolutely insane. I'm so stoked to have the opportunity to help bring this to life.
Mm,
But you know, for example, the Civil War oneer, right? The first
yeah.
time we really see battle in the Civil War. Um, that reads as a battle scene.
Yeah.
So talking with production and talking with Danny, I was like, okay, what is the real vision for this? Because right now, this is Confederate and Union soldiers and cannonballs, and it might even be bayonets. Like I don't know because it's not the action wasn't exactly described in detail how we wanted to see the battle, right? Like when I read it, it's not shot description, it's a script. So it's a little bit of action description, and it ends with one of the characters who has a role in that episode getting blown up by a cannonball and landing in camera with his leg cut off. And later, Bradley Cooper's character visits him, in the makeshift
Mm.
hospital ward there at camp. And so I said, Danny, what are you looking for? Like, I mean, this is massive. We're gonna, like, depending on how many things we want to highlight, we're gonna need 20 stunt guys on each side of the field, like and then a bunch of background. And he said, I want it to feel like we're there. I want to be a fly on the wall. And what I would really like to do is a oneer. I would love the camera to move through the battlefield.
Yeah.
And if it helps with the resources we have available, I really only want to look at the Confederate soldiers. And I said, oh, okay,
It's interesting.
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting take on it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, then I guess I went to work. After that, I bought a bunch of Civil War Army men, just like the little green
The
ones.
little group. Yeah,
Uh,
that's so good.
yeah, so they had Civil War ones, so I bought like Confederate and Union ones, um,
Wow.
so that way I could set up what our sequence was going to look like, and I did it on my kitchen island that I was, in my rental property out there on the show, and I set up the entire battlefield, and I got horses and carriages, and I got cannons and trees and fences from our art department. They loaned me some from their models they were building,
Yeah.
and essentially roughed it in based on Danny's information, what I thought it was going to look like.
Right.
And then before I shot anything, I took overhead photos, and then I took photos of it looking at it, like almost forced perspective. So they looked to scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I sketched on those photos like, this is where we're going to do the saddle falls. This cannon's going to be going off. These two guys should be dying here in the foreground, another guy in mid ground, right? And so I kind of ran through it all in a sketch format with these photos I took in my kitchen, and that's what I presented to Danny the first time.
Wow.
We looked at it, like we actually looked at it together.
That's incredible. And it's crazy how you can start on something like such on a scale like that from your kitchen island and then have it pulled off with that. You mentioned that there was like potentially like 20 or so soldiers on either side on the background actors. How many performers did you end up having to work with in that scene? Just a huge
Yeah,
scene.
it was a huge scene. So at the end of the day, we weren't going to show the Union soldiers, so that eliminates half the amount of people that we need for the scene. And it's a clever way to do it to help yourself out logistically, right? But it also focuses on the side of the war whose perspective we're telling the story from, right?
Yeah.
So Bradley Cooper's character is a chaplain in the
Yes.
Confederate Army, so we're showing what's happening to them.
Yes.
Um, and we ended up having for that scene 100 background actors,
Wow.
20 reenactors, right? So they were kind of a specialty background that we had.
Mm.
They were allowed to fire the black powder muskets. They have experience, performing this
Sure.
era
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
war regularly. We had 13 stunt performers, and we had 12 wranglers. And the wranglers are, another specialty department, but those are the cowboys. Those are the guys that do all the horse work.
Mm.
And they're there not just to ride on camera with us from time to time, but they're there to help train and coach and also catch the horses if the horses take off on us. And when our stunt performers fall off the horses, they're off camera reeling them back in, right? They're literally wrangling the horses. Um, and then we also had a team that operated those cannons.
Right.
So, a gentleman by the name of Cannon Bob, he's licensed in the United States to own and operate these black powder cannons.
The name
Um,
is apt. That's a good name to have if you're gonna
yeah, Cannon
operate some
Bob. Actually,
cannons.
you can see in the corner of my screen, he made some
That-
scale replicas, and a few of us were gifted cannons.
oh, that's
Yeah,
sick.
it's stamped, says Righteous Gemstones on the top of that
Oh,
cannon.
that's awesome.
Um, but yeah, so we had Cannon Bob's team dressed up, and they were working with our stunt performers and operating the cannons. And then we had mortars that our VFX team buried in the ground, and I had to work with them very closely to place them so that way not only was it safe for our performers, background was far away enough away from them, but also it didn't spook the horses, right? So we could
Sure.
operate the horses at the same time.
Mm.
Um, and then also, you got to think about filling your frame. So from the filmmaker perspective, where are we going to put these explosions, and how many of them are going to be in the foreground, the background, and the midground, so that way it really fills our frame up and tells the story that we're trying to tell of this battle, and nothing feels too empty.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's it because it's not just visually engaging, but the story, like you said, the story is being told, and it's kind of. I've just curiously just thought of this. when you do have to think about that from a filmmaker's perspective, not just the logistics and the safety and the stunt side of things as well, does that sort of light a fire in yourself? Has that ever sort of crossed your mind to be like, oh, I like the idea of the filmmaking aspect of it all, and potentially because we see it now, you know, how many
Yeah.
stunt coordinators and martial arts like the choreography guys have gone into directing after this. Is that something that sort of excites you as well?
Oh yeah, bro. A
Nice.
100%. And you know what's funny is it was on 300 Rise of an Empire. I
Mm,
did 5 weeks of reshoots on that as a performer,
yeah.
and I got to see how closely Damon Caro, who was our second unit director
Mm,
and one of our stunt coordinators, was working with Zach on that film.
yeah.
And he really trusted him and his input, and it was a true collaboration.
Sure.
And I was a young stuntman at the time, and I said, you know what? I thought the evolution for me was stunt coordinator, and I am doing that now, but
Mm,
it opened up the concept for another path at that time,
yeah.
and this is 2000. And when did we shoot this movie? We were doing reshoots 2012. I think it came out in 2013.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and I was like, man, that might be something that I would love to do later is second unit director and get to be a part of the creative process on a deeper level. And so, as you now know, I've moved into coordinating.
Yes. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
still perform, but I always looked at myself as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And in the stunt department, even as the coordinator, I'm always trying to tell the best story possible through the action. And so it's does our action that we're creating based on the script that we're given
Mm,
complement the story? Are we helping to drive the narrative? And are we evolving the characters through what's being created? Or is this just gratuitous action porn, right?
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and some movies, that's what you want. But
100%.
other films, it needs to complement the story. And so I do always think about that. And I do hope eventually to move into second unit directing and even first unit directing. And I've shot a lot of short films and I've
Mm,
produced a lot of shorts in the last few years to try to do the work.
yeah.
I don't expect just because I'm a coordinator, somebody's going to let me direct. So I'm trying to get that seat time in now. So
Yeah.
that way, when the opportunity presents itself, I'm ready.
That's awesome, man. I would love to see anything that you make, man, like, in that regard,
Thank you.
because
I
but that's the thing,
appreciate it.
like even just that scene, the scene we've been talking about, the Civil War scene, is just one of those things where there is so much happening in the frame telling the story. But then there's the other scene, the jetpack scene, which is also telling so much story as well. Because, and like I said, as a fan of the show, watching these religious degenerates go from insanity to try and make money for their church. Of course, it was going to get to a point where they are trying to fly around their church in jetpacks. It
Oh,
makes
yeah.
logical sense for these crazy characters. I'm curious to know when it might even be the hardest I've laughed in the show, actually, watching Danny's jetpack fuck up. I always like to myself laughing. But I'm curious to know when you do read that in the script, do you get a moment to actually just enjoy it from a story perspective before you go, okay, how am I going to pull this off? Do you get that chance as a fan to go, all right,
Oh,
that's pretty
yeah.
funny?
Yeah, I laugh every time. Like those scripts crack me up. Like I am the dictionary explanation of LOL. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
100%. Like
Yeah, I
I
get
am
it.
laughing nonstop reading those scripts. It's one of my
So funny.
favorite things to do. I've done a lot of different things in my career. I've had an opportunity to perform in a few comedies, but like having the opportunity to coordinate this show just brings me so much laughter and joy and pleasure and happiness and every other synonym you could think of. It is, man. I remember telling my fiance reading these scripts like how hilarious I'm like, you don't understand. I'm like, I have to break this down. And I just catch myself laughing in the kitchen, nonstop sitting at the table, just like cracking up. So as a fan, I do. And yeah, I don't know if I've said it in any of the media that we've done the last couple of years for the show, but uh, you know, Danny before this was and still is one of my favorite comedic actors.
Oh,
So like,
100%.
growing up watching his stuff as a teenager, huge fan, and then getting into the business and evolving and watching what he was doing as I was coming up in the business, I was like still hooked, still a fan. And then randomly getting an opportunity to work with him and the rest of the Rough House crew um, has been, I mean, it's really a dream come true. He's still one of my favorites. I think he's one of the goats
Yeah.
when it comes to comedy and film. and television. And to have an opportunity to work with somebody that I've looked up to in the space has been, I can check that off my bucket list. I didn't even know it was on there, but take that
It's
sucker off.
this industry is incredible like that because I've been doing sort of the interview side of things for maybe like 3 or 4 years now. And when a name pops up and I go, I never thought I'd be able to talk to that person or interact. And
Yeah.
it's just as a fan of movies and TV, it's so exciting. I love Danny as well. I've seen it a million times, but I rewatched Tropic Thunder like 2 weeks ago, and that
Yeah.
he is just so damn good in that.
Oh,
And
he's the best, worst special effects coordinator ever.
it's so good. Just him doing that first explosion is just it's wild. But he's incredible. But then he's from what I can see, he's in the jetpack for a lot of that as well. And so how is that working with him and sort of because he has a lot of physicality to do with that jetpack stunt. What was that
No, he
collaboration like with
does.
Danny?
He did great. He really did great. And look, he's always down to do as much of the physical stuff as he's
Awesome.
down to do. So he also, Mike Endoso, who's a dear friend of mine, has been a stunt double on the show pretty much since the first season.
Right.
And he's a second generation stunt performer. And Danny knows and trusts him. So he's going to do as much as he can. And he also knows Mike's there to make him look good and help get the big laughs when it comes to some of that massive physical comedy. But to really answer your question, Danny was down from day one to get in the jetpacks. He's been in a harness a few times in his career,
Yeah.
so he was all for it. He said it in an interview, and he's 100% right. And I don't disagree. Like, they're not comfortable.
Right.
It's you're wearing this jetpack that's fake, but still has batteries in it and fans in it and lights in it. So that's like 28-ish pounds, right? Maybe 30
Uh,
something pounds.
yeah.
And then you're also in the harness. And so you're carrying extra weight. So it's more uncomfortable
Mm,
than flying in a harness normally.
right.
And after 4 days of doing that, it gets a little old,
Sure.
especially
I can imagine.
if that is not the thing you're doing every day for your job. But he was a trooper. And we got him on the spinning rig on the floor that special effects built, and we did some mid-speed turns with him. And then for some of the wides, we put Mike in it, his stunt double, and cranked it up to level 10, and just ripped Mike around for as long as he could stand. And then we flew Danny
Oh,
and Edie and Adam, and everybody was they were champs. They really were. They were uncomfortable at times because it gets that way after a while, but they did everything that we needed them to do as a
mm,
team, as a Gemstones team to really make that sequence what it was. Like, if you don't have your actors' faces while doing the action,
yeah.
it's really hard to sell. People know what you're doing. You're hiding them. And so being able to get as much of them as possible on camera was key. And they were all down for it, and put in the time and the effort and sat through the discomfort to really make it something spectacular and hilarious.
It's so good. It's so great to watch, and it's so funny. Like I was a kid who like I was a church kid growing up, and not anymore. And I've seen what some of those like giving sermons are like, and I never
Yeah.
thought I'd see what jetpacks would come into the equation. So, and I guess like. In film and TV today, it seems, at least from an audience perspective, I don't know what it's like behind the scenes, but we are watching a lot of actors who do talk about the fact that they want to get in stunts. I mean, I've got the Tom Cruise poster behind me. I guess he's almost the poster
Yeah,
child
man.
of that sort of mentality as well. As a stunt coordinator, as someone a performer who's worked with actors all over your career who want to do it, is that exciting for you as a coordinator as well to see that more actors want to take part in this incredible art that you do as well?
It is honestly because look, we do the same thing on the flip side. There's a lot of times that stunt performers get cast to do essentially action acting, right? We come
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
to play a bad guy, we get given dialogue, and for me, anytime I've got to do that, which actually has been fairly frequently in my career, oddly enough, um, I always want to do the best job to honor their side of the profession,
Yeah,
right? And I ask
sure.
for tips. I'll talk to the actors I'm working with in the scene and say, hey, if you were in my shoes, what are some small things I could do to be better? Because I want to honor what you're doing.
Mm,
I don't take it lightly getting to
sure.
speak on camera. And so it is exciting to have actors that are excited about our craft and do want to learn more and do more. I'm not going to say stay away, let the professionals do it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's stunts always look better if
Mm,
your guy or gal can do it, right?
yeah.
So if I'm the double and you're my actor,
Mm,
and you can physically do the action we need, and you can do it safely, that's much better for the story we're trying to tell because we don't have to try to hide me doing the action for you, right?
yeah.
So the more I can get you to do as a stunt coordinator safely, and then we integrate your double in for the most difficult portions or
Mm,
the very intricate portions, it's going to tell the story a lot better for our audience because they get to
100%.
stay with our actor longer, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so I love it, man. I don't discourage it ever. And we will hit a wall, right? We'll get to a point though where, okay, great, you're not able to do that or you're not comfortable. That's okay.
Yeah.
We're here to take over, and we're here to make you look the best that you can.
Yeah.
Whether you're doing all of it or we're doing most of it, we're here for you.
And then on the flip side of that as well, though, the recognition for stunt performers and stunt coordinators seems to be growing more and more from an audience point of view. And the biggest thing that a lot of, I guess, people have been talking about within who comment on the industry is the awards recognition for stunt
Right.
coordinators and stunt performers and stunt teams as well, whether it's Oscars or not. And I know you were part of the Rebel Ridge team that won some awards last year, which the action in that film is truly incredible. Rebel Ridge is one of my favorite movies of last year. It's like it's such a good movie. Um,
Thank you very much.
oh no, my pleasure. But I'd love to ask sort of how much that recognition does mean to someone like you and to your team as well when you do finally sort of get the fact that people are really recognizing that what you do isn't just cool, but it's an art form and it takes a lot of skill and
Yeah.
work to do that. Is that recognition important to you as well?
Look, it's important because it gives you kind of like a North Star, right? It's a compass. It continues to
Sure.
point you in a direction and let you know that what you're doing is working. Does
Mm,
that make sense?
100%. Yeah.
Like it's kind of like, hey, it's a nice little attaboy and a pat on the back.
Hmm.
And especially in, kind of a masculine driven part of the industry and stunts. And I say masculine as a general term, right? Like it's kind of
Totally.
rough and tumble. And whether, it doesn't matter how you identify, it's a
Mm,
very rough and tumble part of the industry, and you got to be tough, right?
yeah.
And there's a lot of grit, right, in the stunt side of things.
Totally.
And so those good jobs and those attaboys, for all intents and purposes, they don't come often,
Sure.
right? And so you really do appreciate it when they do come. And it's usually from within our own little peer group.
Mm,
So when you have other parts of the industry at large recognizing your work,
mhm.
it lets you know that you're on the right path, and it lets you know that the work you're doing has been received well, and like you should continue in that direction. At least that's how I feel.
Totally. Yeah.
um and it gives you something to like strive for on the level of excellence outside of safety, right? You're like,
Totally.
oh great, my peers do recognize what I'm doing and they do appreciate it. And it is motivating,
Yeah.
like I don't care how much people say that those things don't matter. It does motivate you, and I'm not driven to get the award, but I'm driven to do my best. And maybe somebody will see that I've done my best, and
Totally.
now there's some outlets, to present that to the world.
It's like the cherry on top, right? You've made the
It
pie, you've
is.
made the cake, and it's fucking awesome. Then you get that cherry on top to do that as well. Um.
Yeah, and,
Oh yeah,
you know
please. Yeah.
what? You said something I just wanted to touch on is you said something about it being, it is art. Well, it's funny because we have this Oscars conversation every once in a while, right?
Totally.
And
Yeah.
it's the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
Mm,
And I can't tell you how much what we do really is an art,
yeah.
and it has so much science,
I
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
There is so much science outside. There's sports science, and then there's real magical science happening behind the scenes. Like we're running calculations, we're doing math nonstop to figure out, at this angle, at this speed, the car is going to go this far when we hit the pipe ramp. So there's so much math and science used in what we do every
Mm,
single day. I don't know how it is not recognized by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, you know and what we do is used in a lot of the submissions that the VFX department gets recognized for their
totally.
category, right? And so I have a lot of friends that are in that department, and we work very closely together.
Mm,
But in a lot of these modern day action films, and even these Marvel films and these fantasy films,
mm,
a lot of the work is being laid over stunt performers. A
yeah.
lot of the work is creating the worlds around what these stunt performers are doing. We're getting ratcheted through space, at
Literally.
400 psi on a ratchet, but
All right.
that scene wouldn't look like what it does without the VFX team and the stunt team, right?
Yep.
And so VFX are getting awards, and some of the awards that they're getting is work that we've collaborated on. So it's
Mm,
kind of crazy to me that our department isn't getting any recognition,
mm.
um, at that level. And I don't say that because we want an award, but we should be put on the same standard
Yeah,
as
yeah.
the other departments.
100%. Like you said, it's that perfect blend of the art and the science. It's I've never heard
Legitimately.
that way before. That's so incredible. Cory, dude, you've been so generous with your time. I really appreciate it. I will close out on this question. I'd be dumb of me not to ask, but I have to ask a stunt performer and a stunt coordinator what potentially you feel is the gnarliest or craziest stunt you've performed. One that sort of sits on your Mount Rushmore of I can't believe I did that.
Okay, I'm going to give you two actually,
Please, no, yeah,
and for different reasons.
sure.
So the first one was on a movie called Mile 22.
I
I,
love
I
Peter
got a
Berg, man.
call. It's a good movie,
Yeah.
and I met my mentor Kevin Scott on that, who used to be his coordinator and second unit director on everything.
That's,
And I got called by one of his partners on that movie, Clay Cullen. And
mhm.
Clay said, "Hey Corey, how high can a parkour guy jump?" And I said, "Up or down?" That's it. You mean coming off of something or going up something? Because those are two different distances. But in the long run, I got hired to jump out of a second story window on fire down to a back deck, and then I was to get up, still on fire, and do a second high fall through the railing of the balcony down to the floor. And it's the opening sequence of that movie when they raid the house.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The Russian cell lights the house on fire, and I double the kid who's running through the house and ends up jumping out the window, and that was gnarly, man. And we
It's
had
not.
propane bombs in the window, so I jump out of that, and I'm going to 1 3/4 inch high dense foam painted to look like wood from like 14 feet out the window.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
the first go, I'm on fire. I come out the window. Explosion happens. My foot gets a little hung up in the window, and so I use the air awareness that I have to kind of save myself, land safely, and roll. I'm not landing in pads, right? And get up. Pete says, "Oh, you looked a little too athletic." I say, "Yes, sir. Understood. I was a little hung up. Just saving myself. I can do better." And so I go up to do the second take. Explosion went off a touch earlier that time and fully engulfed me. So I actually got blown up, burned. I had second-degree burns on my hand,
Holy
face.
shit.
Hit the deck flat that time and bounced off the deck. And I was good. I ended up not going to the hospital. I stayed and worked the rest of the week. Did a couple
Oh,
more fire burns. So gnarliness. That was probably one of the gnarliest gags I
that's
had done.
gnarly, dude. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, man.
And you're just like
And
another
that same
Tuesday,
day,
right? For another
it
Tuesday
was,
for the
and
stunt
literally,
guys.
I think it was like a Tuesday, by the way, which is hilarious. And we ended up working through Sunday. And can't even remember how many fire burns I did that day, but I ended up doing a
Wow.
bunch of little fire burns to complete the sequence.
Yeah, yeah.
And then my second favorite for a
Mm.
different, so that was the gnarliest. My
Okay.
favorite was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I uh, I did the high fall at the beginning of the movie. I'm the cowboy that gets shot off the roof in the black and white footage, and
Yes, dude. Yeah.
I come off the roof, rip through the balcony, rip through the porch. We rehearsed it for about a week, worked a bunch of different stuff out. It was like a real old school style high fall, and I got an opportunity to talk to um, Quentin Tarantino before the fall.
Dude.
The AD was like, "Hey, Quentin wants to talk to you. Show me what you're doing," is what he said. So, well, this is how I thought I was to take the bullet hit. And he saw it and said, "Yeah, that's pretty good, but I was thinking something like this." And so he did one. And then he looks at me and he like points his finger guns at me. And I'm like, "Oh, he's shooting me." And so I did it. And then I shoot him and he shoots me. And we go back and forth for like 30 seconds. And he finally goes, "That's pretty good. Why don't you climb on up there, kid?" And so I
Wow.
get up on the roof. I do the fall. Everything works perfectly. Thank goodness. And actually got a clap. He's very much loves stunts. His
Yeah,
crew is very, very
totally.
sweet and loving toward the stunt department. And I got a round of applause, which is something I never got on a show. His producer came up to me and shook my hand and told me thank you. And kind of in the back there, I saw a tall, handsome cowboy sticking out from the crowd, and it was Leo. And he walked over to me at the end of it and shook my hand and told me it was a pleasure sharing the scene with me. And
Wow.
so so one of my favorite moments in my career was working on that film and that stunt. And then one of the gnarliest moments of my career was doing that fire burn out the window on Pete Berg's movie.
That is incredible. Those are stories as movie lovers, and I know I can tell from talking to you as a film lover.
Oh,
Those are
come
the
on,
ones
man.
you take to the grave, man. Like that is just like that is incredible. Oh,
Yeah, I'll have
that's
that forever. I'll have
yeah.
that forever.
I
You
know
know,
it's early days on it, but obviously that news that came out with Fincher directing the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood follow up. I mean, I don't
dude,
know if
I was just
anyone.
talking to a friend of mine today about it. Actually, he sent it to me. He sent me one of the posts about the announcement. Like,
You're
I
like
let it
Fincher,
settle.
I'm here.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'd love to be a part of that project. Let's go.
That's so good. Corey, man, thank you. Like I've taken up so much of your time. Thank you so much for chatting, man. This has been so much fun. I really enjoyed it. I hope we get to do it again sometime soon, whatever projects come up. I
Oh,
really
brother,
appreciate your
reach
time,
out.
man.
Yeah, thank
100%.
you, and reach out to Stephanie anytime. We would love to chat again if something cool pops up.
That's so good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend. And yeah, we'll definitely talk again soon. Thanks, Corey.
You
Appreciate
got
it.
you got it, brother.